I was just astonished. I read this statistic recently and was astonished that essentially in U.S. federal penitentiaries, about 1/2 of the population there are there for drug-related problems. So it just seems astonishing to me when you consider the possible harms and possible crimes that can be engaged in, that 1/2 would be drug-related. All right. So, bearing this in mind, in my view, I don't see it as really even worth arguing that this is, the costs involved are not worth it. Okay, I guess perhaps it's unfair. We really have a unanimous panel here that has total agreement. Perhaps I should have come up and take the other position. Just to be fair. Okay. Well, I wasn't asked my position when I was coming asked to come speak. Yeah. Okay. All right. Now, my view I'm putting forward is not based on constitutional considerations. Okay, it's perfectly constitutional. In some states they may have some dispute about it. It's perfectly constitutional to criminalize certain activities that it's viewed as having harm, but it's more a prudential consideration. That it's really foolish and a waste of money to be expending so many resources on something that in the end does not seem to be accomplishing much. In fact, it seems to be causing a lot more harm, as I said, causing a lot more harm, but harming many people's lives, or ruining them. But somewhat, pointless. Okay. Now, with regard to justification for criminalizing something, certain principles that we see in criminal theory are that we want to minimize, to the extent possible, criminalization and make sure it's strictly necessary. It should be a last resort, so to speak. And as we see when we're looking at the past however many years, criminalization just seems to be snowballing, getting more and more. All sorts of activities. And the reaction to the failure of criminalization, in other words, the fact that it doesn't actually succeed in stamping out the activity, is to get, ask for more severe penalties. Let's put them in prison for a longer time. I see this regularly in U.S. politics. It's always a winner to say, we need stricter penalties for criminals. And, raising the fear that people who take drugs are just thieves. They come and, steal it from your house and so on. Put them away for however, permanently, I guess. Proves right. Okay. So I was saying this should be done as a last resort. And I think, based on what we talked about, I guess if there were another perspective, I might bring another attitude, but I don't see that the massive costs and in view of the level of ineffectiveness, it really makes sense that it's worth it. Okay, and plus I don't see the harm caused as really mandating criminalization in terms of looking at minimization of criminal penalties. Okay, a further problem to raise, I have relatively brief comments, so I can get a bit of a time limit. Further comments to raise is problems about the disparity in enforcement, which is really quite shocking. I think it's well known, but for example, I said 50% of persons in federal prison are for drug-related crimes. But if you want to talk in terms of class or race, it's really shocking. The statistics, for example, I don't have the exact statistics in my head. The white population in the U.S. is about just over 50%, maybe between 55 and 60, I don't recall. Black population, I think, somewhat over 10%. Again, I'm forgetting the exact amount. In terms of percentages, the white and black population use drugs about the same rate. Right, so that means there's a lot more white people using drugs. But in terms of who's in prison, in pure numbers, or absolute number, 10 times more black people. This just seems completely unacceptable, completely unjustifiable.
Well, just about half of the total population in the U.S.
And you can see reasons for it. Is obviously enforcement. There's a lot of discretion in enforcement, and that can lead to disfavored persons being the brunt of, police dislike. We all know there's a lot of corrupt police who, in fact, arrest a person, take most of the drugs, and then turn them just a little bit, but put them away in prison. Okay. So if there is there's a morality that I was talking about earlier, if there's a morality behind this position that we need as a society to stamp out this sort of vice, it seems to me to be a very bankrupt hypocrisy. Example, one of the arguments may be put forth, we need to set a good example. Even though it's maybe not effective, the state should set a good example. Okay, well, who is paying the cost of setting that good example? Persons who get arrested and thrown in prison and have their lives ruined, whereas quite a number of others don't suffer those consequences. So, in this sense, if you're only able to punish a rather small percentage, you have to start questioning whether you should be punishing anyone at all.
No. Maybe you should.
Okay, and you go to some points about massive criminalization, also massive incarceration. The U.S. has 4% of the world's population and 25% of the world's prison population. A shocking amount of people in prison, and it's gone up exponentially recently, no doubt due in part to drugs. We need to reverse that trend, not ramp it up more. And this is one way to do it. Okay. I've got a few other comments, but that's fine. I go along the same tenor, so I'll stop there.
All right. We're coming to the end. The last presenter, Wanda James from Colorado, looking at legalizing marijuana in Jamaica. Wanda.
Hello, everybody. I don't like being behind a desk. 20 years ago, my then boyfriend, now husband, brought me to Jamaica for the very first time. And neither did I fathom at that point, as we looked out the wonderful waters and enjoyed the warm breezes and had a great time in Jamaica, never did I think that 20 years later, I would be addressing the University of the West Indies talking about the legalization of ganja. But I am thrilled to be doing so. I went to high school, and I graduated from the University of Colorado. So cannabis has been a part of my life for about as long as I can remember. I graduated from the #1 pot smoking school in America, University of Colorado. University of Colorado was also the #1 funded university from NASA, so we are high in a lot of ways. Also being from Colorado, many years ago, my husband and I, we've owned a number of restaurants and consulting businesses, and I'm in politics. I've worked for President Obama on his National Finance Committee in 2008, and we've gotten 2 congressmen elected, a couple of senators, a governor, and a few other elected officials. And my husband was sitting there one day, and he said, you know, what do you think that we should do next? We were sitting on our front porch. And my brother had just come to live with me from Texas. My brother was 17 years old when he was arrested for 4.5 ounces of cannabis. At 17 years old, my brother received a felony in Texas, and he spent 10 years in the penal system. My brother picked cotton in Texas for free for 3.5 years. What he got from the cotton industry for picking all that cotton for 3.5 years and making them money was he got to get out of jail a little bit earlier for good behavior. So when people tell you that slavery is dead in this world, we all know that it's not. Because in America, what America needs to be profitable, we are one of the richest countries on the face of the planet, but what we need to be profitable is slave labor. Cannabis is how we are now producing that slave labor. There was a congressman in Indiana that sent a letter to Nike and told Nike that it should close its factory in Indonesia and should open up the factory in Indiana because they could beat the labor cost in Indonesia, because they have a very large prison system with a lot of prisoners. So why are we arresting, and as lawyer just finished saying, why are we arresting black and brown boys, black and brown people, but mostly black and brown boys between the ages of 17 and 24? We're arresting them for cannabis, and we're arresting them at tremendous use. We're arresting 760,000 people a year in America for simple possession. Of that 760,000, 85% are black and brown. Mostly boys, or mostly men, between the ages of 17 and 24. The reason that we have targeted this group of people is because they don't have family lawyers and money and different things to get them off of these charges. Because I have yet to meet any of my white friends from the University of Colorado that have ever done time in Texas or picked cotton for 3.5 years and got out for good behavior. It doesn't happen. So when Scott and I were sitting there on our porch, and my brother had just moved to Boulder, Colorado with Scott and I, and we said, what do we want to do next? We had just gotten America's first black president elected, and the Attorney General for the United States had came out and put out what we call now the Ogden Memo. The Ogden Memo said, as long as you are following your state rules, you will not be arrested. So in Colorado since 2000, we've had medical marijuana on the books. When that Ogden Memo came out, people took medical marijuana and decided to make businesses out of it. In 2009, we had 1,100 dispensaries open in 2009. This gentleman right here was the regulator for the state of Colorado at the time, and now my partner in Cannabis Global. We had 1,100 dispensaries open, and Scott and I decided to open a dispensary as well. At the time, in 2009, we were the only African American people that were licensed to have a dispensary in the state of Colorado. We were raided. Since we had worked for so many different politicians, we weren't fearful of doing it because we knew that the state of Colorado couldn't make us criminals. However, there was a complaint at our grow facility because we had a legal grow. Somebody called up and said, there is gang activity going on at this grow facility, at this warehouse. Gang activity. Oh my goodness, gang activity in Denver, Colorado was happening. So they sent a SWAT team, 5 big black cars with guys in riot gear and I don't know what they had, guns and battering rams, and they came and they busted down the window, busted in to our grow facility, ran over the desk that we had sitting there with all of the paperwork from all of our patients, because everybody knows that drug dealers and everybody has paperwork with their patients and desks sitting in their grow facility. But you know, that didn't stop them. They busted over the desk and they went back in the back and they filmed all this. So a few weeks later when we saw the film, they were walking through in their hazmat, you know, but it looked like they were going for Ebola or something. I don't know what was going on. And they were cutting off the top of all of our plants. They were cutting off our colas. And they said that they took those because they wanted to have those in evidence to find out how potent this stuff was that we were growing back there. Scott and I got on the phone. We called a couple of congressmen, a few senators, the governor. We said, are you kidding me? The next morning, the police called us, called our attorney, and they returned our plants, they returned our books, they sat down with us, sent their top-ranked sheriff in to speak to Scott and I, and their first question is, you're not going to sue us, are you? No, we didn't sue them, but we did have friends from then on. So my point in telling you all of this is, in getting in Colorado, this was not an easy thing that happens. I think when I'm here in Jamaica and we're talking about the legalization, sometimes it's put forth that it happened in Colorado seamlessly, that everybody was in agreement for it and that this was an easy thing for us to do. On Tuesday, November 4th, is our national election day. Both of the people running for governor in Colorado are not in favor of legalized cannabis. But as the gentleman on the end said, there's really not a lot they can do about it because we wrote it into our Constitution. I was a part of the Amendment 64 campaign committee, so we actually wrote the law. It was a genius law, which I think, not that I had anything to do with it, but it was genius, because we had decided at that point that we were going to make this a constitutional amendment. What we have in Colorado is when our politicians don't do what the people want, we can put a bill or an initiative on the table for the people to vote on. Well, the people in Colorado voted on this amendment, and this amendment got 70,000 more votes than Barack Obama did in Colorado. It won with over 55% of the vote. It won 55 to 45%. In Colorado, a 10% gap in an election is what we call a political landslide. We knocked it out the box. In knocking it out of the box, we had all the fearful people coming out and saying, oh my goodness, people are going to be high in the streets, all the kids are going to be stoned, no one's going to go to work, you know, there's going to be accidents everywhere, Armageddon is going to happen, the sky is going to fall, and all of these things that they talked about didn't happen. So from 2009 to last year, 2013, we operated under medical marijuana. It was a great success. We have serviced over 225,000 patients. In Colorado, if somebody has one of the 8 conditions that's listed in our Constitution, they can get medical treatment. 225,000 people in the state of Colorado have been red card holders. The red card is what you get, which is a recommendation from your doctor to be able to go into a dispensary to buy cannabis to take care of your ailments. Most were over the age of 40. So once again, we did not see the 21-year-old getting the card so that they could go buy cannabis. With the popularity of what happened with medical cannabis, and the people of Colorado had a 5-year period to get used to the idea that yes, there were more dispensaries than Starbucks. And people say that as a shock value. There are more dispensaries in Denver than Starbucks. You would think that there were just dispensaries lined up everywhere. Has anybody been to Colorado? Been to Denver? 2 people? A couple people? There's a lot over there. You have to really look for them because they blend in. And they're done very well. They blend into their neighborhoods, they look like all the other shops, they look like a coffee shop. You would not notice it if you were not looking for it. So it has not been a black eye on the state of Colorado or to the beautiful city of Denver. As a matter of fact, the areas where we put medicinal dispensaries at first were not good areas because nobody wanted to rent all the high-end areas to us. So we started a road that we now laugh at. We call it Broadsterdam. It's Broadway in Denver, and South Broadway was not a good place. It was the only place initially in 2009, or one of the only places that dispensaries could be. This area of Broadway was dark, dingy, lots of crime, not a great spot. Since the onset of all of these dispensaries down there, because now if you drive down Broadway, there's, 25 dispensaries down there, 30 dispensaries down there. The entire street has been redone, it has been reformatted, there are businesses all over the place, it's bright, it's happening, it's wonderful. The reason why is because all of these dispensaries brought so many people and so much foot traffic and so much business down to Broadway that other people were saying, well, hey, let me put my McDonald's right down here. Let me put my bank over here. You know what? I'm going to put my consulting business over here. I'm going to put this business over there. And before long, Broadway has now turned into an extremely booming area because of cannabis shops. So now that we've been legal, we came out and spoke to the folks here at the Future Growers of the Ganja Growers Association back in January. And we had legalization in Colorado for 2 weeks. The first day we sold $1 million and it turned out to be a very nice month. After that month, sales continued to go up. The naysayers said, well, it's not going to keep going up. This is just, people just want to come and they just want to buy pot once and go home and this will obviously die out. 9 months later, we have created $45 million in tax revenue to the state of Colorado. By the end of the year, we expect that to be $70 million to the state of Colorado in tax revenue. We have sold over $600 million worth of cannabis, and that equates to about 133 metric tons of pot in Colorado that will be sold this year. That is a tremendous amount. A tremendous amount. We have over 700 or 1,000 businesses currently. We have another 1,000 grow facilities. We have created 10,000 jobs in the industry alone. People who work in a cannabis industry, 10,000 people. On top of that 10,000 people, we probably created another 20 to 30,000 jobs of industries around cannabis, such as security, design, insurance, legal, lighting, HVAC. We've done a tremendous job with this industry. So why are we here in Jamaica? Because 20 years ago, I fell in love with this place with my husband. And when I look at Jamaica, and we look at what happens here, and we look at the dependence on the IMF, and we look at the lack of jobs, and we look at the lack of money that is coming into this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful island, how do we change that? It's very easy. We do what you're already doing, but we make it an industry. We make it an industry that can employ people. We make it an industry that can show people how to grow better cannabis, to grow medicinal cannabis. We have universities that can study cannabis. The University of Colorado right now is dissecting the cannabis plant down to its genome to find out exactly what this plant does. We can do that here. We can do medical trials on this island. In Colorado, we are taking care of about 300 babies with epilepsy. Babies with epilepsy. We're curing MS, we're making Parkinson's more bearable, and there are some people that say that this can actually cure cancer. Why is that not happening right here at this university today? When you talk about treaties, and I only have a few minutes here, we never once considered a treaty in legalizing Colorado. Of all of the meetings that I have been in, and like I said, we wrote the bill, we never sat there and said, what about this international treaty, y'all? What are we going to do about this? We made it legal, and we moved it forward. I think that it's definitely time for the people of Jamaica, it's time for your government, and we have not heard anybody say, don't do this. It's a fear going forward as to what happens when you do this. Is America coming for you? No, we are not. 2 states are legal right now. Tuesday is our election. We're expecting Alaska and Oregon to become legal states. We have 23 states in the District of Columbia right now that have medicinal marijuana. Florida may be the 25th state. By 2016, which will be our presidential election, we're expecting 11 more states to be legal. Legal, not medicinal, legal. It will be very difficult for my government to stand up and say we are going to enforce these treaties through the UN. It is definitely time. You own this brand. I see Buddy sitting right here. Owns this brand. This is a brand that Jamaica owns. And I am hoping to see this country learn how to do legalization, because when I think about getting pasta, I want to go to Italy. When I'm thinking about getting ganja and sitting on a beautiful beach, looking at that water and feeling this air, I'm not going to Italy, I'm coming to Jamaica. So thank you very much.
All right, we get to the last segment for questions and answers, and I see the hands going up. We're going to start first over here.
Good afternoon. I was very glad for the last presentation because I had written down here the politics of weed in Jamaica, the elephant in the room. I didn't hear anybody mentioning really the politics. So I was very glad when Ms. James talked about political power, because I think that if she had a grow up and she didn't have certain kind of political power, she might have been closed down and so on. In Jamaica, the real stumbling block is the politics in Jamaica. And so we talk about economics, which we know what that says. We talk about the social theory, which shows definitely that criminalizing this does not make any sense. So why are we still here? And we ask the question why we're still here, as if we don't know why we're still here. So when are we going to tackle the politics of ganja in Jamaica, and then how we're going to, whether it's going to be grassroots or constitutional or whatever, how are we as the people? I don't think we have something like in Colorado where we can just go out and vote on it ourselves. But how are we as the people in Jamaica going to make this pass and don't let the government tell us we can't do this and we can't do that and we're going to find you still and whatever. So I'm looking for suggestions on the politics of this and what do we do to overcome the major stumbling block with politics in Jamaica.
I'm not so sure what you mean by the politics, honestly. Let me say it like this. Yeah, not so sure, not so sure. Here's what. We first have to cross, I hear what Wanda saying, but when you're in the United States of America who push to make marijuana illegal, so they are just undoing what they did. That's what it goes, straight. America undoing what they did, so we know the road is going with world powers. We're in a different space. So our first task is to deal with the treaty issues. The country, the parliament don't have a choice. They have to deal with the treaty issue. Now, as I said, there is a strong precedent internationally where several countries have interpreted the provisions of all the treaties, because some provisions clash up with other provisions. There are some inconsistencies, there are contextual matters, and there are socio-cultural issues. Many countries have interpreted that recreational use need not be criminal, and Jamaica is heading in that direction. Not legal. Legal would mean, as what in Colorado, you could grow a certain amount in your yard, you could go to a place in life. Dealing will still be criminal, because the seller, the man who's selling, is going to still be criminal if he's not licensed by the state. And I listen carefully to what the minister said. The licensing relates to medical marijuana and not recreational distribution of marijuana. So that's a hurdle. A country like Jamaica with a massive debt burden, that's a hurdle that you have to navigate. Now, you can navigate like Europe worldwide. You could decide that we step in and deal with and soak up the consequences of the UN. But America is sailing in that direction. If we hinge our sails, hinge our ship, I think we're going to be fine. I'm a little worried about decriminalizing the halfway house because agencies will develop monopolies, and who will be these agencies and who will determine who gets the licenses to grow. Our ganja grow good on vast acreages like that, it grow good in certain climes. So those are issues I'm a little worried about in a place like Jamaica. Skullduggery, corruption, patronage politics. A little worried about that. So those are issues that I've said, but those are issues that are not really partisan political issues. Those are more issues of small island state having to confront organizations in the UN that continue to spread propaganda about marijuana. The 2013 report issued out of, I think it's the body that controls, the International Narcotic Control Board, spoke about dangers of marijuana as if he has not lived the last 20, 30 years in the world. So when I read it, I said, well, that's a very high place. And if a high place like that. So yes, there are some struggles, but they're not really internal political party issues. They're really issues relating to how we're going to navigate those constitutional issues. We could go constitutional, in my opinion. and do like what Colorado did, which I think because the convention say limited, subject to the limitations of your constitution. If we make marijuana possession for recreational use in Jamaica a part of the constitution, in my opinion, argument done that way, but then the backlash. But America's sailing in that direction, so I don't think the backlash is going to be great. You know that here's
the reality is you has always been a third political party in the country, and my parents say you would have to keep them mouth shut and not have these things, you know? And I think that is where the real pressure of command and the state. I mean, 9 leaders in the region come to the University of West Indies. The researchers here in the university. What are we saying? So even the politicians are not brave enough to make that step. I don't think any international convention can tell me what to say based on the research that I have done, you know? And so a part of the thing is to arm the people with information and be prepared as researchers to defend that as well. So I find that the laws don't change Jamaica because a lot of university people shut them out. And so we as youth people need to start going out there as researchers to show them what is being said and give the politicians some strength. I don't know what's like government campus. No. If I know I'm going to move to the same thing, I'll make a politics. That's how I go. From that time till this time, it's the same thing. I have to move and then these youths will move.
Right, we have a lot of hands going up. This man is first.
Hey, Mr. Green started first, and I lifted my hand up.
No man, he was first.
Good evening. I know most persons who speak on the panel identify themselves. Well, I am Orville Silvera, and the chair for the Ganja Future Growers and Producer Association of Jamaica. Now, Professor Knight, I love your enterprise, social enterprise reality. But we're coming back to the young lady's question over there. What are we going to do with the politics? Now, the politics must be non-partisan. But it must be partisan from the point of view of the Jamaicans. This is a Jamaican issue. We have one low-hanging fruit that can bring economic benefit right now. Right now. And that is ganja. Its cultivation. I recall saying something recently that this industry should not, and if the Ganja Future Growers have anything to do with it, it will not be another bauxite industry for Jamaica, where you come in as foreigners and you take out my raw material and then you wheel on me your finished product. Ganja has been illegal, every aspect of the plant in this country. But there is a social issue that has made foreign companies come here and can have the name cannabinoid registered as the name of a company, while the plant is illegal and I can't do it. I am stopped by bureaucracy. Go back to Professor Knight. What is the university doing? In Colorado, the doctors, medical doctors, are allowed to give a red card to individuals so they can go and purchase ganja for their medicinal use. Can we have the Jamaican doctors do that? No, in honesty, which Jamaican doctor really, right now, will readily, honestly, give to a Jamaican a card to go and purchase ganja for medicinal purposes when their entire studies forbid them? We have cultural users, people who actually use the thing culturally. They cook, they have it for tea, your grandmother, your grandfather. They are the ones who know the benefit of ganja. They are the ones that should, the cultural users there, should be the persons given the authority to say, grant a license to, as the man said, the Ras said, Mr. Green Shirt. So that he can go and buy marijuana to benefit himself medicinally. Alright? So I'm asking the university. I have been on the radio. My vice chairs have been on the radio. Maxine Stowe is here. The Honorable Bundy Livingston has been on the radio. He has been in the media. I have not been hearing you. What you all doing? You are the university, you are the researchers. You leave us all up to go out there, single voice, but you come inside here and you have a confab. Who is hearing? I saw an ad in the newspaper, a little teeny ad in the newspaper advertising this. Who knows about it? Who knows about it? The government is supposed to be the people. Learn, teach us as PhDs. You all teach us how to command that governmental responsibility in office. You teach us. Alright? Now that is my reality. We need to educate ourselves. We need to educate the institutions. We need to educate the business schools. So where are you? We need to get with it, man. Get with it. We need to get with it.
Alright, coming back. I see about 7 hands so far.
Despite the size of the ad, I don't know if it had an impact.
Mr. Delicious, thank you very much. All of you, people, thanks so much. I'm learning a lot here.
Anyone came from
I don't have a long speech because I think it's ludicrous to tag ourselves to the United States because, the more they legalize things in those states, the less other markets will come to us for anything because they can get right across the border right there. So, I think we should just do one thing like Miss Wanda said. See it because, no one ever look for me from a long time, so I look on them right now. And the business me want to deal with. Dr. Knife, it's a pleasure to meet thee, Aya. See him? What's this? I'm not interested in the philosophy of it. I've suffered the incarceration, the detentions, the blah, blah, blah. 4 times I go to jail now. I'm going to give a charge for nothing yet, just detain me because I'm split. See me? Watch this. So I started business at Paris. And practiced business in this country for quite a while. I'm interested in the business. Because all this thing about enclave industries and mass benefit, these things were decided by the markets in the past. Why not now? Why is this large bureaucracy being formed to, this is the overseer of ESSA, and when I go be in part of the committee, yes sir, and see me farm a thing already up in the hills of St. Andrew. The Santa Maria Can Hemp Association with the farmers, the producers. That may do now. Produce. Land plus labor plus capital equal production. That you know. So Dr. Knife, compatriot, because we shall meet and speak. Watch this. I want to know the dialectics, the mechanics of how you are going to make sure say, right? The people who produce the product retain control of the product. Get their market share and retain their hold on the business. What do I deal with?
So, I'm an American, but I live in Jamaica. Two of the biggest problems you always hear about Jamaica are crime and the economy. Crime and the economy. And we've heard a lot about how legalizing ganja will help the economy. But, and this is particularly notable when you're talking about decriminalization as opposed to legalization, is a lot of the crime in Jamaica, as we know, is driven by the illegal ganja trade. People trade ganja to the US and bring back guns. You buy the guns with money that you've made in the illegal ganja trade. Criminals want to protect their crops, protect I'm not that well versed in it, but I know well that A lot of the money for buying guns comes from the ganja trade. This is true here, this is true in Colombia. There's a reason why just about all of the 10 top homicide countries in the world are in the Caribbean basin, the drug trade. So, given the high crime rate, isn't it crucial that it's legalization that takes the money out of criminals' hands and puts it into hard-working producers of ganja instead of drug traffickers, gunmen, etc.?
Yes, greetings. Sister Maxine Stowe. I'm with the Rastafari Millennium Council. I'm with the reggae music industry, which is the promoter of the Ganja brand internationally. And I'm also vice chair of the Future Ganja Growers and Producers Association. So as everyone in the association and in the Rastafari community and in the reggae music industry, are a bit frustrated with the lack of movement on this. So the sister not spoke about the ability to vote on this, because I don't think that the type of will that was in Uruguay, where the political class, who I personally know, their political campaigns are funded by the ganja industry, right? I personally know that I was involved in assisting a lot of them in that area, right? So it is highly hypocritical, but maybe not hypocritical, because this whole ganja legalization is really about the control of the people, right? It's a social control issue. And so because it's a social control issue, the politicians who depend on the social control for their system, it is going to be very hard for them to relinquish, right? So somehow this thing has to get to the people voting. So I'm asking now, how can the people vote on this issue? Like how, can somebody explain how the people can vote? Like a referendum. I heard Andrew Holness at some point say that he was going to put some kind of referendum on the table for the people to vote. Because too many people in this change or how to make this law happen are too self-invested in it being an illegal industry, right? The Butch Stewarts, all of these people with their money, right? Because all of them, NCB Bank, all of these people, somebody, I don't know if it's a university, has to research and tell us what is the formation of the existing industry that we are seeking to transform. Because the gentleman talked about this setting up of a new industry. And I'm saying I don't understand that, because there's an existing industry that needs to be transformed into this new industry. And we need to understand the research and the dimensions of that industry, how to transform it. I again agree with the sister that if we, these people who depend on the exporting of this product, this new industry is about the keeping of it here in Jamaica. A lot of millions and millions of dollars that's funding something here is going to be removed. And these people, you know, we need to get the people to be able to vote and get it into some kind of a law.
All right, come down here. But keep it short, yeah? Oh, move along. Yeah,
bless up, bless up, bless up. This is the original Don Dada Jabone Wheeler. I have been a member of the Wheelers from 1964. But before that, I am a son of a ganja planter called Tabby Shot. I don't know if any other people know it. And my father has been distributing ganja here in Jamaica. It was long ago when, you know, there was something like ganja, yes, but there was other weeds that was sold that was illegal that my father sold. But high grade was the particular measure of what the culture relates to, coming as ganja to us. So I have been smoking ganja from I was a little youth, myself, Robert Marley, Bob Marley, Peter Tosh, and all the people of Trenchtown, and all the brothers of Bakawal. And all these things have been done over the years, and a lot of people have been sentenced, imprisoned. Even myself have been sent to prison illegally because of ganja. But there is a serious responsibility for us all as it concerns ganja. And in making sure that our children and our generation do not end up being fighting for the legalization of ganja, for us now to sit and reason and work out a measure in which we shall enjoy in the legalization of ganja. I, Dr. Abanuela, is always going to be searching for, looking for ways and means of legalizing ganja for the benefits of the Jamaican people, especially Rastafarians who have been identified with ganja. So I would like to see and understand that all Jamaicans, whether you're politician or not, because politics has a great say in anything we do, because that's the way we have allowed it. And there are people who have been benefiting from ganja that are politicians, but yet, as politicians, they have not made any effort for the legalization of ganja. So, as a survivor of the wilderness, I am here. I have 142 acres and I am going to plant ganja. So, I am ready to go to jail again. I went already. For none. So I will go for plastic. I could. Big up.
Just permit me to assist you in what I asked the question. All right. Yes. We have to be realist. So we like to kind of start with weight then, situational analysis. If the Parliament of Jamaica does not act, or the people of Jamaica push the Parliament to act, then we won't get to a place where ganja is legal, because the Parliament of Jamaica signed off on international conventions that led to the Dangerous Drugs Act that govern how ganja is dealt with in the country. So if the people get to a place where it pushes the government, but unless those laws are changed, we're going to be where we're at for some time. The decriminalization fraught with problems, halfway house. There's a lot of debate about whether we should or not, but that's where the government is going just now. Just decriminalizing. That's my understanding of what they have said. Your members of Parliament, that's where you need to start.
Give thanks for the organizers for this event. Give thanks for the presence of Wanda James, who was here on January 18th at an event held here, at an event in which the principal of this university played a major role. It seems to me the political solution that the sister asked about earlier, I don't know, I'm not sure if necessarily the big event like an election is necessarily the first thing we need to look at. I think politics is about power, and this event is a political act, one of a series. It started with the launch of the Ganja Growers Association here, and has continued with many other things, including the formation of a university cannabis research institute, of which I am a part. My question is, if Professor Freddie Hickling, Professor of Psychiatry, was here to put it to him, but anybody, anyone at all, probably Sister Wanda, how much politics we still talk about, but sometimes about leveraging through small acts, bigger results. Isn't that true, that? So, I want to ask a question. How much was the apology given to the American citizenry by, was he the Surgeon General? Sajid, how much did an apology from an authority of the power that be to citizens which said, we really deeply apologize. We have been telling you nonsense all along, and we'll take it back. We're wrong, we're wrong, we're wrong. How much did that figure in the kind of momentum that would have allowed electors, to now say, yeah, this is a good thing because medical authorities have said, we're sorry we were wrong. Jamaica is a different kind of people in life, I didn't even know. People tap on your toe, do your things, and it's hard for you to say sorry, quick up and bring your bun and cheese tomorrow or so. More than say, I am sorry. But the question is, what do people think? If a similar authority in Jamaica had said, Jamaican people, we're so sorry. God, we did so wrong. How can a thief and corruption go and we was, I don't even have to say that about them, but we're sorry. We were wrong in the misinformation. How much do we think that could have affected course of events like not making a Mario being get killed?
Thank you to all the presenters. I have a question concerning the last two presentations. Dr. Gillis already touched upon the ethnic profiling in America, and Ms. James spoke about the slavery involved in the prison industrial complex. I would like to know, in the states that have legalized, there are lots of, especially white people, making a lot of money from this, millions, while the black and brown men you spoke about are still in prison for the same plant. So I would like to know what is being done to free them, since the thing is not illegal anymore. And also, once it's legalized in Jamaica, what will be done to also free the men and women that are now in prison for a plan so that families can be restored again. Thank you.
All right, we're coming to the end. I'm going to take 3 more.
That's an excellent question. We are currently getting ready to run, Colorado's legislature comes back in, and we're sponsoring 2 bills. One is called the prison bill, to be able to allow anybody that is currently in jail for what is now legal to be removed from jail. We have what we call a 3 strikes law in Colorado. So if your 3rd strike happened to have been possession of a joint, you may have gone down for X amount of years, depending on what the other crimes were. So we're going to be running that bill this time, this legislative session, to let those people out of jail. And we're also running a bill that would actually seal the records of anybody that was convicted of anything that is now considered legal in the state of Colorado. I'm hopeful that as we go through once again, it's state by state by state. We've already seen the President of the United States say that people should not be arrested for cannabis possession. So it is my hope, because of the dramatic effect that it has on black and brown people, that this is something that becomes throughout the United States with everybody. And hopefully, as Jamaica becomes legal, or as the world finally lets this go, that all the people who are incarcerated for nonviolent drug offenses are released. But once again, it's a piece-by-piece process.
To tie into that, when we're talking about profiling, this is a huge problem in the U.S., not just with regard to drugs, but all sorts of things. And honestly, the idea is, in cities like New York and others, the police essentially profile persons based on race, and then again, we'll find a lot of things like, illegal gun or some drugs, then incarcerate them. No, they didn't have any particular reason for stopping them. This is a might be a really serious problem. But you get the arguments back that, well, essentially, this zero tolerance policy that Mr. Giuliani, mayor of New York, I don't know, some 15 years ago or something? Yeah, thereabouts, he left in 2001. His zero tolerance policy really worked. If you just put everyone in prison,